Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. We're going to be talking about salt or sea salt. Is it good for you or is it bad for you? We'll dive into this topic in just a second. Please smash that like button. Love to see your comments down below. All right, so sea salt. There's a couple types of salt out there. You have your sea salt, like your Celtic salt, found on the ocean floor. You have like your Himalayan sea salt, which are different Himalayan salt mines. Your Redmond's real salt, which is a Redmond, Utah type of salt mine. These are excellent salts because they're going to contain more than just your sodium chloride, right? Your typical table salt is going to be just sodium chloride, NaCl, and a lot of times it's bleached. There may be some aluminum or some harsh type of chemicals in there. Not the best, right? It's definitely better than nothing. I mean, having high quality sea salt or having high quality sodium and chloride is good, but you want it from high quality sources. Most people get a lot of conventional salt if they're eating processed food. It's in everything because it covers up flavor. It makes you thirsty. So it's a drink. Like if you look at a lot of I think there's a lot of salt in like sodas and things like that because you drink it and then it makes you more thirsty down the road. So a lot of people will put salts in things to continue to keep you drinking things more. Now, my favorite brands are going to be your Redmond's Real Salt. Love it. You're going to have about 65 to 70 different trace minerals in these products out of the gate. Your typical sodium and chloride, you're going to have magnesium, you'll have potassium, you'll have calcium, and you'll have lots of other, unknown, very microdosing homeopathic levels of other trace nutrients. So electrolytes play a very important role. So for instance, we need good, healthy minerals. Our adrenals make hormones called mineral corticoids, aka aldosterone, to help hold on to our minerals. We have what's called the sodium-potassium pump. So we have essentially potassium inside the cell, sodium out, and we do this switcherooski here, where sodium goes in, potassium out, and that helps control cellular communication. We need that good flow of sodium and potassium out for our cells to communicate and work. We have natural beta blocker receptors on our heart called magnesium. So magnesium is really important for relaxing the heart. Calcium is actually needed for action potential and nerve contraction to happen. So we need that nice calcium influx when we have that depolarization of our nerve contraction, right? Muscle contraction, that depolarization happens. And we have that big calcium influx to have that action potential work. So calcium is important. Obviously, certain minerals, right? Our bones. Bones are going to be half protein. People forget that. We need good protein, good collagen, amino acids for our bone and connective tissue and cartilage. But again, calcium is going to be needed. Magnesium, strontium, vanadium, right? All these are really important minerals. But sea salt is important for that. So out of the gate, if you have adrenal issues, one of the big things you're going to see is low mineral levels because you're peeing a lot of it out. You can go open, there's a section in Guyton's Physiology where cortisol is talked about, and when cortisol goes high, you actually will dump out potassium, for instance. And so you need your nerves, need these electrolytes for them to function as well. So your little fasciculations, whether it's like you don't get a good night's sleep, your eyelid will just twitch a little bit. You'll notice a little twitch in the muscles. And these small little hands, or your the smaller contractions in your hands or your forearm, you'll see a little contraction there, or big old cramps, right? When you're dehydrated, you're outside too long, you're exercising too much, you get big cramps. So you may see your muscles quiver and not quite function optimally with just some of these lack of electrolytes. And so sodium and potassium, chloride, magnesium are going to be the big ones. Now, sodium and potassium have a natural relationship. At a lot of sea salts, you will not get enough potassium. So this is where you can add in what's called new salt, which is like a potassium citrate or potassium chloride salt. That's a good one to add in just to get, or a cream of tartar type of situation where you can add a little bit of potassium that way, because a lot of times you won't. So if someone really has a lot of electrolyte issues, a lot of muscle contraction issues, a lot of blood pressure issues, because minerals help keep essentially where minerals go, water will go as well. And so that will kind of keep the hydration or keep the liquid volume in your vessels, which will keep your blood pressure up. The problem is when people have adrenal issues, they'll lose their electrolytes, they'll lose their water, and the blood pressure drops. And so when they change body positions from high to low, you'll get this, they'll get really lightheaded because they don't have enough pressure to perfuse that blood up to the brain fast enough. So that pressure is really important. Now, sea salt or salt in general gets a bad rap because it can increase blood pressure, but it's not the underlying cause. So typically how it works is this. You have glucose comes in. When glucose comes in to your body, whether it's from starchy carbohydrate breaking down to glucose or whether it's processed sugar getting broken down to glucose and fructose, that is going to cause an insulin spike. That insulin spike is going to cause essentially a increase in your sodium and chloride, and that sodium chloride is going to cause an increase in water behind it, that's going to cause increased blood pressure. It's part of the reason why when you go very low carb, you lose a lot of weight out of the gate, because you're lowering your insulin, which is lowering your salt, and your minerals, which is lowering the water, right? So you lose a lot of water the first couple days. And typically when you process glucose, for every I think it's 1 gram of glucose or 1 part glucose, you pull in, 3 part water with it. I think it's because of that insulin, because of the effect that insulin has pulling minerals behind it. So that's why when you lose a lot of weight in the first day or two, it's not fat. It's just going to be hydration. And so the biggest reason why you have this blood pressure increase and why people get a bad rap for salt being an issue, bad on your heart or bad on blood pressure, is because of the insulin. Insulin is the driving factor. The salt comes along behind it, and then behind the salt is going to be your water. And then behind the water will be the concomitant increase in blood pressure. So it's not the issue with the salt. It's going to be really the issue with the insulin. So get your carbohydrates right. Get your insulin looked at. Some good lab tests to look at would be a fasting insulin. Make sure your fasting insulin's below 10, ideally below 7. That's a good sign that you're not insulin resistant. You can do a functional glucose tolerance. See how you do before a meal, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours after a meal. Ideally, below 100 fasting, and then, 1 hour later below 120, 2 hours later, ideally below 100. That's a good sign that you're not surging insulin. The lower your blood sugar is a good sign that you're not surging your insulin, right? The higher your blood sugar, the more insulin you need to bring it back down. Higher the blood sugar, more insulin. Lower the blood sugar, less insulin. Insulin helps bring that blood sugar down, pulls the glucose into the muscle, or it's going to put it into the fat. Same with fructose. Put it into the muscle, or pull it in, or convert it to palmitic fatty acids in the tissue. So very important out of the gate. So electrolytes, super important for your body. When you hydrate in the morning, first thing I do is about a quarter to half a teaspoon, maybe a little more. I just cover the bottom of my little coffee cup of sea salt, put a couple ounces of RO water in there, reverse osmosis, down it, do it one more time, rinse it out, make sure I get the residual, and then down it again. It's excellent. So highly recommend that to get your electrolytes up with good high quality sea salt. I like the Redmond's Real Salt. Get the refined version, the very fine version of it. There's like a kosher salt, bigger types of chunkier pieces, and there's a fine version. The fine version is excellent because it blends really well in the water. The heavier chunks, I find when you put it in water and then mix it up, they want to sink to the bottom, so it's hard to really get them out. The fine version kind of floats a little better. Plus, I think it tastes a little better too. Do that on my steak. It's wonderful. So in regards to it, if you're having a hard time with blood pressure, with dizziness, with standing in dizziness, definitely look at supplementing at least a half a teaspoon of sea salt twice a day. I think it's a good way to do it. If you do an RO filtered water, you're going to lose almost all of your TDS, your total dissolved solids in your water, which is good because part of what's in TDS is minerals, but it's also bad stuff too, right? Lead, maybe mercury, right? Maybe aluminum. So if you start off, your typical tap water's got a TDS of 200 to 300. Well, once you put it through an RO system, you'll get it down to like 9 or 10. So you'll get 98, 99% of it gone. Well, you want to pinch just enough of sea salt back in there to bring it back up to that 200 to 300. But at least we know that it's not junk. It's going to be a good high quality electrolyte in there. Now, if you get dizzy or feel bad adding in a little bit of sea salt in there, you probably have lower potassium because sodium and chloride have this natural seesaw relationship. So as you bump up sodium, sometimes that can have a serum drop in potassium. And so if you're noticing you feel worse with sea salt, you probably want to add a little bit of potassium or a little bit of new salt with it. Again, in my line, we use potassium synergy, which has a potassium citrate with a little bit of magnesium at a 10-to-1 relationship, 10 times more potassium than magnesium. So we'll add a little bit of the potassium with it and with the sea salt. So about a teaspoon of sea salt along with the potassium out of the gates. So big question out of the gates for you guys is, do you have adrenal issues? Look at getting your adrenals tested. Look at adding electrolytes into your water. Look at salting your food pretty liberally. Typically about a teaspoon of sea salt and to get your TDS, your total dissolved solids in your water up to about 200. You shouldn't be able to taste much of it. You can get a good TDS meter on Amazon. Pretty simple, good one, $10. Put it in there, check your water out, see where you're at, filter all of it out, pinch a little bit back in, get it to about 200 or so. You won't even know it's there. You won't even taste it. So that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Salt your food pretty liberally. Top brands, Redmond's Real Salt, Celtic salt, Himalayan salt. The finer the better because it's going to blend well in the water. Do it at least twice a day, and then also salt your food pretty liberal with it. Hope that helps, guys. When I start walking outside or doing a treadmill, my hand starts swelling. Should I try to take more salt or potassium or all electrolytes in general? or go to a cardiologist. So if you're, start to swelling, take in when you go outside. So I would probably just work on adding in some sea salt, and I would work on adding in some potassium along with it. Now, if your hands start swelling, I would want to see how inflamed you are. So I'd want to run C-reactive protein. I want to make sure there's no clotting issues. Make sure all your vasculature is flowing and there's no clotting issues. So throw homocysteine on there, throw D-dimer on there, throw fibrinogen. Let's make sure clotting is good, and let's run insulin too. Let's make sure there's no insulin resistance, because insulin is going to jack up all of your small vasculature. It's going to cause clotting and glycation to all that vasculature. So run insulin, all these other markers to get a window into that. But if you're going to do your electrolytes, do something that's going to kind of have a good overall blend, so you're not doing one thing out of whack. But do that, and then test your insulin. If your insulin's high, that's going to throw off a lot of your electrolytes. Great question. What would make my feet cramp only at night and big toe? Sometimes stick straight up from cramping. I would look at adding in some magnesium at nighttime, and you can also add in a little bit of sodium and potassium with it. You do both. And if it's your feet too, you can even do a intramuscular absorption with a Epsom salt foot bath, because you're going to absorb that magnesium sulfate. You're going to absorb it right into that tissue in that bloodstream directly. So get a cup or two of Epsom salts, put it in some hot water, put it in a foot basin, let your feet soak in it 15, 20 minutes, typically till the water gets colder, and then pull it out. But you're going to look at magnesium, potassium, and then put your sodium chloride in there behind it. That's a good one. Hope it helps. All right, excellent questions, guys. If you want to dive in deeper, if you have adrenal issues, vascular health issues, electrolyte issues, there'll be a link down below, coordinates where you can reach out and schedule with my team. If you want to dive in on the functional medicine side, we see patients worldwide. Hope this video was informative. If it was, let me know down in the comments, and please feel free and share with family and friends. All right, guys, take care. Bye.